And I'm Nikki.
And welcome to our YouTube channel. Actually, we made this channel especially for those international medical graduates who are planning their journey here in Australia. Right, Nick?
Yes, so I've actually had a lot of questions from different people, also fellow IMGs from overseas, who've always asked me questions on how I was able to come to Australia and work here. And I probably talk to 3 to 5 different people every week. And I basically just decided we might as well do a YouTube channel so that we can get more information out there.
Yes, that's true. And what we're going to share in this channel is basically from our own experience and from other experience of other people as well. And we'll be inviting some really good resource people who can talk about their own journey in practicing medicine here in Australia. So if you do have questions for us, guys, feel free to contact us in our email below, okay? All right, so for this first video, Nick, I think it's best to actually discuss about the standard pathway. Don't you agree?
I think so, because the standard pathway is actually the most common pathway that IMGs usually take. Besides the standard pathway, there's also the specialist pathway, but there's a lot of disadvantages about pursuing the specialist pathway, which we will discuss in another video.
Okay.
So we'll just tackle the standard pathway today.
So just remember, this is the standard pathway made easy for you, right?
Yes.
All right, so let's get on with business. So what is the standard pathway, Nick?
So the standard pathway is actually the pathway that you're supposed to choose if you are an international medical graduate trying to come to Australia to work as a doctor. And it's usually for those who are fresh graduates of medicine or MBBS degrees who haven't specialized in their home countries. Or it could also be the pathway taken by specialists in their own countries who are most likely will not be able to get a comparable assessment from their respective specialist colleges. So standard pathway is the way to go.
That's true, because again, there are certain standards that the Australian Medical Council and even the registration agency request for us IMGs. And when you go through that assessment, sometimes they would suggest, this is the pathway for you, you should take the standard pathway, or you should take the competent pathway. We'll talk more about that in our other videos for this channel, okay? So after the standard pathway, all of the information you would need is actually in their website. But again, going to the website, Nick, is just a lot of information so that we, in this channel, will make it simple for you, okay?
So I think both our experiences, me and Danny, was when we were trying to find information on how to get to Australia to work here. There were a lot of different websites out there with lots of information, but it's very difficult to pick up the pieces and put them together to actually understand the whole flow of the process. And with the Australian process, it's actually a bit more complex because there are many different ways how to go about getting general registration with APRA.
Okay.
So we'll be discussing the different pathways on how to eventually get that coveted APRA general registration.
Yes. So ultimately, you need the APRA general registration in order to get your permanent residency visa or
get into a specialty training program in Australia.
That's true. Yeah. Okay. So first off, if you want to do the AMC, you need to do the AMC portfolio, okay?
So the AMC portfolio is basically something that you do online. You pay a registration fee, which I'm sure is on their website, and you have to upload
information about where you graduated, what institution you graduated from, when did you graduate?
And what your experience is.
Yes.
And once you create that AMC portfolio, you also need to do your EPIC registration.
Yes.
EPIC, we'll probably put link down below to the EPIC website. But basically, EPIC verification is when you upload all your medical degrees and documents for them to verify with the institution that you got your degree from.
That's true. I remember, Nick, way back I started my journey in AMC about year 2016, actually. Was reading about this, and when I did the EPIC verification, I had to send all my documents to the US, and they had to verify my medical degree in order for me to sit the AMC examinations. Okay?
All right. So once you finish doing your AMC portfolio and EPIC verification, which usually takes around 2 months or sometimes 3 months, it depends on how fast the process is and how fast your medical school responds to the verification process. So after you get that done, the next step is to actually schedule your AMC 1 examination.
Yes. Okay.
From our personal experience, I personally scheduled my examination in 3 months, but I didn't feel like it was enough time for me, but that's just my own subjective feeling. So I actually added another 2 months, so it took me probably 5 months to actually prepare for AMC 1.
Okay, maybe we'll discuss more about how to prepare the AMC exam for the AMC 1 examinations and what is the AMC 1 examinations in another episode of our channel. But once you plan to sit in the AMC examinations, there are several ways that you can go through in order to reach that general registration process. So let's talk about the first one. Okay.
All right. So basically, your stepping stone to work in Australia is take the AMC 1. That's a must for any succeeding pathways that you want to take. So take the AMC 1 exam and pass that. So we want to talk first about attempting to get a hospital job, like with an RMO position or JMO position. RMO is resident medical officer or junior medical officer. Those terms are interchangeable. Mm-hmm. So take the AMC 1, then take an English test, which could be PTE or IELTS or TOEFL or OET. There's a lot of English tests out there. Just check on the APRA website which ones they acknowledge. And then with AMC 1 and just an English exam, you can actually already start applying for hospital jobs.
That's true.
So you just send in your CV to hospitals and apply. And if you're successful in getting a job interview, and then if you're successful getting a job offer, then you can actually start working with that hospital under a working visa, which they will sponsor you, like a sponsored work visa. And then you will end up with limited registration with APRA.
Yes.
So because you've only had AMC 1 and an English exam, you can only get limited registration.
Yes.
So with limited registration, however, you can start working, but the thing is, you still have to do either your AMC 2 exams, either that or WBA program.
The work-based assessment program.
Yeah.
So let's talk about when you get your limited registration, and then you can stay for as long as, working through a limited registration pathway, but sometimes some hospitals do encourage you to take the AMC Part 2 already, because there's just a limited amount of institutions that do a WBA program. So most of them, if you land a job with a limited registration, you need to still sit the AMC 2. All right, AMC 2 is the clinical examination. Right?
Yeah. And I do remember reading somewhere that nowadays there is only a limit on how much you can renew your limited registration. So there's a time deadline.
Okay.
So you have to take the AMC 2.
All right.
So take the AMC 2 while you're already working. Finish your 12 months of supervision at the hospital. At the same time, you have to finish the 3 rotations needed, which is an emergency rotation, a surgical rotation, and a medicine rotation.
Yes.
And then after you finish all of that, you are eligible to get your general APRA registration.
Okay, so that's the first
One way how to do it.
All right.
So the second way how to do it is, let's go back to AMC 1.
Yes.
And then you take the English exam. And then you take AMC 2 right away, which actually increases your chances of getting hired for a job if you finished AMC 2 to begin with. So finish AMC 2 and then apply for a hospital job, whether it's an RMO position or a JMO position, or if you have more experience, you can actually already apply for an SRMO, which is senior resident position,
or an SHO position, which is senior house officer. The terms are different in every state, but basically they're at the same level.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have another video explaining all those different terms for you.
Okay.
All right. So with AMC 1, English exam, AMC 2, and a hospital job offer, you will be granted provisional APRA registration.
That's true. Yes.
So start working with a hospital on a working visa, finish your 12 months of supervision, and finish the 3 rotations again, the medical, surgical, and emergency rotation, and then you can get your general APRA registration.
Some hospitals do offer you these rotations already during that 12-month supervision. So both me and Nick, this was our pathway towards general registration.
So I think overall that's the most successful path to choose, is to take the AMC 1 and AMC 2 at the get-go, because that makes your chances of getting a job sooner higher.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, so that's for hospital jobs, if you're aiming to do a hospital job. If you want to do the GP path, it's a bit more different. Pursuing a GP path, a GP job as your first job in Australia is a bit more complex. So you have to have a certain amount of GP experience back home. I would say probably 5 to 6 years in your home as a general practitioner if you want to work as a GP as your first job, because I think you need to get RACGP experience assessed.
Yes, and it's a whole complex pathway that people have to take. Some people who work in their home country for like 5 to 6 years, if they have their experiences assessed, it's just equivalent to like a couple of years or 3 years Australian, usually half of the Australian standard. But again, it's another complex thing that some people had to make. There are 2 pathways in order for you to get the full general registration when you start working in a GP practice. So first, you sit in your AMC 1, you take your English test, and then after that, you try applying for these GP practices, I mean. Usually the practice manager is happy with you. They will actually encourage you to sit in this type of interview. It's called the PESCI exam.
It's called a PESCI interview. It's a pre-employment structured clinical interview.
All right.
So it's we've never attempted the PESCI personally, but from what I know, it's a panel interview, and basically you have to know the demographic that your practice is situated in. And when they ask you clinical questions, like they have certain clinical cases, and you have to answer how you're going to approach the management of that patient. So it's a bit like the clinical exam, like AMC 2, but it's a bit more detailed in terms of discussing treatment plans.
Yes, and I think they will assess if you're fully aware of how the current practice is working and how their systems are and how you're going to work within that system. So again, assessments for the PESCI can be done through the RACGP or the ACRM colleges, but again, it's a whole other topic to discuss, and we have a few friends who did that pathway, and we'll invite them maybe later on. Okay.
So to recap that, you take the AMC 1, you take an English exam, and then you can start applying for GP jobs. If you're successful in getting a GP job offer, then you take the PESCI examination, which is specific to that practice location that you're going to work in. If you pass the PESCI, they will grade you if you are a level 1 supervision candidate, or level 2, level 3, or level 4. Level 1 supervision basically means you need to have someone with you in your consultation room, a fellow GP, 24/7
Yes.
while you're doing your consultations. So you have to have someone there for the first 3 months. And then level 2 supervision, you have a bit more freedom, but there should be a GP fellow in that practice that you can bring up at any given time. Sort of like that. So level 1, 2, 3, 4. Level 4 supervision is basically you don't need much supervision at all.
Yeah, and usually these are the GPs who've been working for a really long time, and they really successfully passed the PESCI. All right? So after that, you will be granted with a limited registration. Yeah. And then after 12 months of having limited registration, sometimes they still encourage you to still take the AMC too. Yeah, because it's a requirement again.
Yeah. So even if you finish the 12 months of supervision in the GP practice, you still have to take the AMC too. There's no escaping it. And once you finish the 12 months and your AMC2, then you can get general registration with APRA.
That's good. Yeah.
Another way how to approach it is you take the AMC1, the English exam, and then you take the AMC2 up front, and then you apply for a GP job. Once you get an offer, you still have to take the PESCI and pass that, and then you start working, finish the 12 months of supervision, and then you apply for your general registration.
Yeah. And usually with these people, they become very successful in this, and after a few years of working as a GP, they sit in the fellowship examinations, usually with the RAC GP, and then they become a fellow GP. Yeah.
So the GP process is a bit more tricky in terms of you have an extra step, which is the PESCI, and of course it's also not a cheap
pathway to make
undertaking. You have to pay as well to get the PESCI done. And the thing is, if you decide not to continue with that practice, and if you pass the PESCI, you can't use the same PESCI result to apply to another practice. You have to do the PESCI all over again for a different practice.
Yeah.
So there you go.
We know that it's long, but that's basically a general overview of what the standard pathway is and how you could land towards that goal of having the general registration.
All right. So I guess that's it for this
episode.
We'll discuss in detail the things that we've brushed up on this video in another video.
All right. So again, if you have questions, please send us an email in the details below this video, and also feel free to like and subscribe and wait for more videos. All right. Thank you. Bye.